If we say that the US dollar is no longer than the reserve and international currency, well, it might be hard to believe, but the truth has changed. Now, the Chinese yuan is becoming an international currency, being adopted by various countries for trade. This is because of BRICS, where the founding members are increasingly using the Chinese yuan for cross-border trade. In other words, countries are ditching dollars to avoid being bullied by sanctions. This is proving U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen's words right when she said sanctions are causing de-dollarization. Just now, we have got the news that the Chinese yuan has left the US dollar behind in being used in trade, surpassing by 2.5%. China and Russia, the two most important BRICS members, have joined hands to make yuanization a reality. What does that mean, and is it the official end of the US dollar? In this video, let's find out. So, what has happened? Well, China and Russia have created a master strategy to replace the dollar by giving the world a living example. China has made significant efforts to promote the use of the Chinese yuan in international trade, particularly in Russia, where the yuan has overtaken the US dollar as the most traded currency. The reason why Russia was chosen to show how the yuan can be used for all kinds of trade is to show how sanctioned countries by the West can continue trade if they choose the yuan over the US dollar. Under Xi Jinping's leadership, China has been persistent in persuading Russia to use the yuan for all trade transactions. As a result, many developing countries are now conducting transactions with Russia using the Chinese yuan and the Russian ruble. Now what BRICS needs is to expand this strategy to all its member countries and then those countries which trade with BRICS. And given China's role as the world's largest exporter, every country in the world will be encouraged to use the Chinese yuan to settle payments. Russia began fully accepting the Chinese yuan for payments after the US imposed sanctions on its economy in February 2022. Since then, other developing countries, including BRICS members like India and Brazil, have also started using the yuan for their trade, especially for commodities like crude oil. For example, India saved $7 billion in currency exchange fees by using the yuan instead of the US dollar to purchase oil at discounted rates. Between 2023 and 2024, the Chinese yuan accounted for 42% of all international transactions initiated in Russia, while the US dollar represented 39.5% of all cross-border settlements. This represents a 2.5% decline in the use of the US dollar, making the yuan the most used currency in Russia during 2023 and 2024. China and Russia are leading the global movement towards de-dollarization. This strategy appeals to developing countries because it strengthens their local currencies and their domestic economies. According to Russian Deputy Prime Minister Alexei Overchuk, around 92% of trade transactions between Russia and China are now carried out in Russian rubles and Chinese yuan. Speaking at the Boao Forum for Asia in Hainan Province, Overchuk also expressed Russia's intention to deepen financial ties with other countries and replace the US dollar in international trade to ensure the stability and security of local currencies. Back in July 2023, Russian President Vladimir Putin announced that over 80% of trade between Russia and China was conducted in rubles and yuan. The bilateral trade between China and Russia continues to flourish, reaching $240.1 billion in 2023, a 26.3% increase from the previous year, with energy being a key driver of this trade. But what about the use of the Chinese yuan in international trade around the world? Here's a reminder to please like and share the video, and subscribe to our channel to watch more videos on Africa's geopolitics, economy, and changing landscape. Let's continue now. The Chinese yuan usage in international trade increased to an all-time high in July 2024. This was acknowledged by the Society for Worldwide Interbank Financial Telecommunication, SWIFT, the world's largest interbank messaging service. It said that the yuan maintained its position as the fourth most traded currency last month, with its share of global transactions increasing to 4.74% from 4.61% in June. This marked the ninth straight month that the yuan's share remained above 4%. SWIFT payment data is a crucial measure of a currency's standing in the international arena, along with its frequency of use in foreign exchange markets, commodity trading, and inclusion in government foreign reserves. The SWIFT data also indicated that the value of transactions conducted in yuan rose by 13.4% compared to June, outpacing the 10.3% growth recorded for all currencies combined. Standard Chartered's Renminbi Globalization Index, which tracks the yuan's use internationally, has continued to climb this year after a substantial 33% increase in 2023, aligning with SWIFT's data. Interestingly, when SWIFT first started tracking the yuan's use in 2010, it accounted for less than 0.1% of global settlements. Since then, the yuan has risen significantly. In trade finance, the yuan achieved the second spot with a 6% market share, surpassing the euro's 5.8%. As nations in the global south look to decrease their reliance on the US dollar during rising geopolitical tensions, the yuan is well positioned to expand its global role. This is proven by the data. In 2023, cross-border transactions and payments in yuan totaled 52.3 trillion yuan, or $7.2 trillion, an increase of 24.2% year-on-year, according to a report from the People's Bank of China on the yuan's internationalization. For China's cross-border trade in goods, the share of transactions settled in yuan rose to 25% in 2023, up 7 percentage points from 2022. In the first quarter of this year, nearly 30% of such transactions were conducted in yuan, according to Zhu Hexin, a deputy governor of the People's Bank of China. But what is China particularly doing to make the Chinese yuan an international currency? Well, no country would adopt the yuan if it's not used by China itself as the major trade currency. Therefore, in March, the Chinese yuan became the most widely used currency for cross-border transactions in China, surpassing the US dollar for the first time. According to data from the State Administration of Foreign Exchange, cross-border payments and receipts in yuan hit a record $549.9 billion in March, up from $434.5 billion in February. The yuan accounted for 48.4% of all cross-border transactions, while the dollar's share dropped to 46.7% from 48.6% the month before. These figures cover both current account and capital account transactions. By May of this year, the yuan's share had climbed to 53%, while the US dollar's share fell to 43%, the euro's to 2%, and the Hong Kong dollars to 1%. Data from the People's Bank of China shows that yuan-denominated cross-border transactions totaled 14.6 trillion yuan in the first quarter of this year. Of these transactions, goods trade accounted for about 20%, services and other current account items about 5%, and direct investment about 15%. The use of the yuan has also grown in China's own foreign trade, with 28% of goods trade this year conducted in yuan. Moreover, several developing economies, including Brazil, Argentina, Iraq, and Pakistan, have announced their willingness to accept yuan payments in trade with China. There are also media reports that Saudi Arabia is considering using yuan for oil trade with China. Other countries have reportedly switched to yuan payments with Russian entities to bypass Western sanctions. You should know that not all international payments are processed through SWIFT. The network estimates that about 80% of global payments go through it. In theory, yuan payments can be made outside the SWIFT system using China's own cross-border international payment system, CIPS. What's more, capital flows to and from China have increased, particularly with the integration of China's domestic stock and bond markets with Hong Kong and the inclusion of yuan-denominated securities in international indices. As of the end of May, foreign investors held 4.2 trillion yuan in mainland Chinese debt securities, a 32% increase from the previous year. The issuance of yuan-denominated bonds by foreign entities in mainland China, known as panda bonds, has also increased since last year. At the end of 2022, capital controls were eased to allow funds raised from panda bond issues to be transferred abroad under certain conditions. Part of the appeal of panda bonds is their relative affordability, with China's nominal interest rates significantly lower than those in the US. Between January and May, Panda bonds worth 81 billion yuan, or $11 billion, were issued in the interbank market, bringing the total stock of Panda bonds to around 240 billion yuan, up from 195 billion yuan at the end of 2023. From all this, it can be concluded that the Chinese yuan is on its way to becoming the next international currency. It's becoming more appealing, allowing countries to not only dodge sanctions, but also encourage them to use their local currency. What do you think? How much time would it take for every country in the world to use the Chinese yuan more than the dollar for trade? Isn't it true that the de-dollarization is being done at a fast pace and the dollar's fall is quite near? In the comment section right below, share your thoughts on the US worth in international matters when its currency won't be a reserve currency. Do you want to watch more videos like this one? If yes, subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon next to it. We have decided to bring videos on something nobody talks about: African politics, economy, and increasing power. Thanks for watching, and until the next video, stay tuned.
Tell us what you think in the comment section. Like and share the video, and subscribe so that you don't miss any of our African videos. It's the best way to support us.